welcome, welcome. We are live. Yes, it's Ujama Day. It's Wednesday. It's 8 p.m. So you know what time of day it is. It is the Sister Shanice Show. As you can see, we have our special guest in the house, none other than Nana Prophet Meduty. I'm going to come to him in just a while. Family, as you come through the door, please do let us know that you're in the house. Let us know what part of the world you're viewing us from. Welcome, welcome. If you're already a subscriber, a special welcome to you. And if you're visiting us for the first time, another special welcome to you. And, if you are one of my Patreon supporters, enough love and respect to you as well for the support. Also, if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. It would be wonderful to have you join our subscribers, and also do remember to give us a thumbs up as well. Yes, you've got a live chat. You can put your questions, you can put your comments, you can put your brief statements in the chat, and I do usually try and get through as many questions and points in the chat as I can. Now, so without further ado, let's welcome Prophet Nana Meduty. Nana, how you doing?
Yeah. Good evening, my sister. Yem Ank Mahat Otep. Itepe Enekeje a Senebe. Timajularo Kutu Kutu Olodomare Jo Jekaba.
Shay, some of our listeners may not know what you said just
I
then.
just said I was words that's been put together from the ancient Comitian text. Greet you with divine peace, long life, stability, and good health. And Yoruba, we're saying, may Olodumare, may the creator of the universe, and protect and guide us, and may the path that we take be a prosperous and conducive path.
Beautiful greetings. Thank you so much for that wonderful greeting, Nana. And we've got a special show lined up for you again today, family. As you know, we have been doing a series where we focus on growing up Black in Britain. Some say Black, some say African, whatever terminology you prefer. But we're talking about us as melanated people. 50, 60 years ago, most people outside of England, outside of the UK, didn't even know that there were Black people in the UK. Why? Because if they are featuring anything or any news or documentaries or films about the UK, what they tend to do is blot us out. It was as if we were invisible. It was as if we didn't exist. And then, as time went on into the 80s and our presence became, very powerful, they had to start recognizing our existence. But then our portrayal wasn't always a good one. But anyway, we're going to put all that aside today because, we're going to be hearing today the story from Nana Prophet because, he knows what it's like. He's had that experience of being Black, stroke African, and growing up in Britain. Nana, I wonder if you could introduce yourself, first of all, to our audience.
Yeah, Maha Otep Vodum. My name is Nana Prophet Meduty Sakara Pianki Imhotep Bonsu. You're probably wondering, and some people are, what is that? Is that the name your parents gave you? No, it's not the name that my birth parents gave me. It's a name that was given to me by the Kweku Bonsu was given to me by the Prempe family in Ghana. Prempes who I grew up with as a young boy in Brixton. And the other names were bestowed upon me through my study of ancient Kemet, etc. I'm an African born in Britain, coming through the lines of the Africans who were kidnapped from the motherland round about in the 15th, 16th century, taken, to the island of what we now know as Jamaica. coming out of the parish of St. Anne's, traveling to Britain via plane, because my parents never come here on board. They flew in, BOAC, Terminal 1, London Heathrow Airport in the 60s, growing up in Lambeth area in the parish of Brixton. African, that's who I am. I've been involved in a whole lot of things. My age is, I'm 61. I'll be 62 this cycle. And it's been an interesting life. And growing up as a young African, I use the word African now. I don't really use the word, you know, interchangeably, I may use the word black, etc. But I'm African, stroke black. And as an African youth who was partly part of the first generation here, born out of the Africans who came here en masse between the late 50s and 60s, it's been a seesaw of travel in this country in terms of experiences. Racism was rife when I was growing up. We didn't have all the resources that many of the young Africans today have resources to. We didn't have exposure of many of the things that young Africans have today, even on the continent. However, sometimes it was a happy experience, sometimes it was a sad experience, sometimes it was a beautiful experience, and sometimes it was a bitter experience. But in all of those experiences, I learned something. I'm involved in an organization called Nubia African Community Foundation School, which is a school that we now define as the African School of Learning in Britain. We, have our children on a Saturday. We teach them mathematics, general science, communication, moral philosophy, and Mother Nature. We've been running for 32 years, and it's the brainchild of my teacher, Dr. Femi Biko. I work alongside other Sebas in that school. Seba Nikoja, Seba Merva, Elder Des, Seba Kimberday, Seba Kojo, Seba Aisha. They are the chairs. They were the children that we taught, and they now run the school. We still participate in giving them a hand in teaching the lessons. Seba Ode, Seba Lizus has joined us, and many, many more.
Wonderful.
Also involved in the reparations movement here in Britain, was part of the African Emancipation Day Reparation March Committee for a number of years, in giving out the information about reparatory justice, restitution, reparative justice, etc. I'm part of GalaxyAfiwe.net, the only de-brainwashing station in Adisia Nation, where you can find us on www.GalaxyAfiwe.net, or you can download the shoutcast and just put in GalaxyAfiwe.net, where you can get Shanice, myself, and many others who report on the things that affect us as African people globally. We are, 80% talk show hosts and presenters, and we have a variety of presenters that deal with things that deal with our community. Mahat Otep.
Mahat Otep, what a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. And now the family is coming through the door. They're hitting us up in the chat. Yeah, family, let us know that you're in the house. Do continue to put your messages in the chat as well. A couple of you are asking, what's up with Galaxy Afiwe Station? Some minor challenges. You know how it goes. Sometimes we get some challenges along the way.
We're just updating the services, Sister Shanice, and it should be all right in the next few days. The website is up, it's working, so people can visit the website www.galaxyafiwe.net, and you can log on or download Shoutcast and just tap in Galaxy and you get it. But you know, it's you know, when you're making changes, these things happen. We're not going away. We're there. So no watch
we won't go for long. So if you tune in today and you can't get us, just tune in tomorrow. Yeah, so some minor developments happening behind the scenes, and it has affected live transmission. But as Nana has said, you most certainly still can get the Big G Galaxy Afiwi. So download Shoutcast and put in Galaxy Afiwi. And we are there. Okay, so
galaxyafiwi.net.
Rise up, yes, okay. Don't forget the .net, galaxyafiwi.net. Absolutely fantastic. So to everyone coming through the door, thank you so much. Hotep, Black at you, Brother Kwame Aboje, good to have you in the house. Welcome, Black. And to Door of L, good to have you in the house as well. Lots of messages for Kwame. Thank you so much. Yes, you was born in a Babylon as well. Blue Zodiac, welcome, welcome. Yeah, we just answered your question as well. Inspired Dynaversa, good to have you in the house as well, saying there were already indigenous Arawak or Taino Black people in Jamaica. They didn't come from Africa. They were the original Jamaicans that Columbus wiped out. We didn't all come from Africa. Well, originally we did, you know, but, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, many of us migrated from Africa, populated the entire globe, okay, and, you know, resided in various regions across the world.
Sister Shanice, I'd like to address that, if I may.
Go ahead, yeah.
You know, there's this narrative that's been pushed around that we all didn't come from Africa. The simple thing those people are saying is just do a DNA test and it will tell you exactly where you come from. The reality is this: the people them that occupy those islands, the Spanish, the Dutch, the British, and the French wiped them out. And what was left amalgamated with Africans who were taken there as enslaved people. Yeah. Incidentally, the first Africans to be enslaved and taken to the various islands did not actually come from Africa straight away. They came from Spain after the fall of the Moorish Empire. And they were taken to Haiti as a enslaved people and escaped. So when the Africans who were kidnapped from Africa taken there, they met these other Africans that were there. You understand? But, you know, it's a misnomer. People are sprouting this over the internet. And all me would have said to them, just go and do a DNA. All who feel said them was indigenous to that, to wherever them find themselves. Go do a DNA report.
Absolutely.
And the DNA will tell you exactly where you come from. You might have a bit of European there, a bit of Asian there, but I can guarantee you the majority of your DNA will be African from the continent. It's nonsense.
And if you can't afford to do the DNA test, just ask a white person. Well,
you know,
to tell you.
and this, you know, my sister.
That's so funny.
This what people, you see, what I'm traveling, and it's a privilege to travel. Yeah. And I wish more of our people could travel. Because see, when you travel, it's an Africation in itself. You understand? It opens up your mind. Now, like yourself, I've traveled to Africa many times since the 90s. The 90s was the first time I ever went to Africa. And I went to Africa, East Africa, West Africa. And wherever you meet Africans, you find we all look similar. There's some Africans who's darker, there's some Africans who are lighter. Not because they're mixed with anybody, but primarily because the climate where they are determines the amount of melanin they need. Because if you're closer to the equator, you find that most of Africans are very dark. But the further away from the equator they are, like the Khoisan or the Khoisan people, who people like Nelson Mandela come from, in the southern regions of Africa, they're quite light. They've never mixed with nobody. They're straight African. You understand? It's all a genetic thing. So different variations of Africans. And I just wanted to push that in there, sis.
Absolutely, absolutely have to agree with you on that, Prophet. You know, these Europeans, they had their plantations, didn't they? And they wanted to populate those plantations, and they also wanted to clear, you know, certain parts of the world where we were in large numbers, such as Spain and other parts of Europe, including Britain. They cleared the highlands, they cleared these regions of Africans and put us all onto those plantations. They had plantations in the America, in the Caribbean islands, you know, and that's exactly what they did. So I have to agree with you on that. Also, just want to let our family know that, you know, there is a major issue amongst our people in terms of identity, because, and that's what's so good about the Saturday schools, you know, because you teach the children identity. A lot of our children and young people, they go through the schools in places like Britain, and they don't learn about who they are. In fact, you know, the history that they will learn about Africans is so derogatory, so demeaning, and so belittling. You know, a lot of people then struggle to identify as Africans until they come out of the education system, or if they haven't been to a Saturday school, they then have to then go on and study about Africa for themselves. And as you say, visit the continent, which is just so powerful, you know, when you see the greatness and you learn of the greatness of Africa. So the family's coming through the door now, but we want to go back. We want to go to start off with life growing up. You mentioned that you grew up in Brixton. Brixton is known around the world, Nana. And so this is a place you said where you grew up. What was life like growing up in Brixton, UK?
Before I go there, you know, the Brixton that people know of don't exist no more. That Brixton is gone. Brixton now is populated mainly by Europeans. Most of the businesses in Brixton, Europeans own them, or different factions of different groups. But the Brixton that I grew up in, you know, I was born in '62 and grew up in Brixton throughout the '60s, '70s, and the '80s. And it was quite exciting. As a child, I went to primary school. I went to primary school at Azerig, and the teachers then were quite racist. It was quite racist at the time, and they were overt with it. They didn't hide their racist connotations that they would say to you, but they weren't brutal with it. At some point, yeah, I got the slipper. Anybody who's watching this reel would know a man called Mr. Butt. He was the deputy head, and he would administer the slipper with thing. I was quite rebellious as a young child. I didn't take rubbish from anybody. And when I got in trouble at school and they told my mother, I'd get a bloody good hiding, because those days our parents were coming from the Caribbean, and the teachers at the Caribbean, the way that they dealt with children, you know, was different than how they dealt with us here. So our parents assumed that the teachers was always right. It took them a long time to get around that the teachers were actually, you know, I'm picking on the children there. You understand? I remember an incident when I was about probably 6, and I said to the teacher, "You don't like black people." I remember that distinctively, and they called my mother and tell my mother, say, couldn't come back to the school until she take me to a psychiatrist. You know, when that incident happened. And funny enough, I was talking to my friend about it today, because we were in the same class.
Yeah.
Steve Lewis is still alive. He was a twin, and his brother Ray, and we had this maths test, and we took this maths test, and we went up to give our answers, and all of us had the same answer. And the teacher didn't believe that Ray and I knew the answer. And they thought we copied Steve, although we was on opposite tables. So the teacher told us to go back and do it again. We got back and do it, got the same answer. Then she told us we're lying, and she told us to stand in the dustbin.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was about 6 years old, 7 years old, something like that.
Wow.
And I refused to stand in the dustbin. We're both, Ray and I refused to stand in the dustbin. So what she did, she said, if you don't stand in that dustbin, you're not going, when played on, you're not go out then. So Ray capitulated and he went and stood in the dustbin, but I refused to stand in the dustbin. I don't know what it was within me, but something that said to me, I ain't standing in no dustbin. Yeah. And when it was coming up to playtime, and she was a big woman, her name was Miss O'Brien, never forget her name. And they let everybody out. And she stood at the door. She was a big woman. She wouldn't let me out. So I start flinging all the beads them and all them something there after her. And she was coming after me. And I was flinging her and I took the chair and I broke her foot. And that's, they locked me. Then she run out. She locked the classroom door and mashed up the classroom. And they sent for my mum. When my mum come and I saw my mum, I just freeze, you know. I'm a whole lady, give me a beating. Give me a beating. And they told her that she couldn't bring me back to the school unless they took me to see a psychiatrist. And my mother refused. And my mother took them to court and had to take me back to school. We're talking, this is in the, the 60s, early 70s. Yeah. My mum was my mum, she had that trait about her. She was a bit of a militant herself in certain aspects, you know.
I mean, that is major because as you're saying, and I can identify what you're saying about our parents' generation, just believing that everything the teacher said was right. And so, for your mum to decide to take their school to court so that you be allowed back into the school, that is a major departure from, the mindset of most of the Caribbean of that generation. Wow, yeah. And so they had to take you back.
Yeah, they took me back. They didn't put me back. They didn't put me back in her class. I went in another class. And I was in that class until we moved up and I went back to my original class. I wouldn't say that all my time at primary school was bad. I had some good times at primary school. In actual fact, I enjoyed going to school when I was at primary school. To see my friends, and I enjoyed the classes. I did have a fairly happy time at primary school. There were times where, you saw the little racism and certain little things go on and things. I remember a friend of mine, funny enough, he's in hospital, but his name was Talbot King. And he joined us around about, I think it was must have been about 8. And he came and he started to talk what we call gypsy.
Okay,
and he was teaching us gypsy. Remember gypsy language? Me pino po wapa sepe. You puno po wapa me pia pa sepe. And
it was a language in itself, wasn't it? Yeah. And only those who could understand it. Yeah.
So we all he was teaching us, we all started to learn, and we were talking like this in school. You know what they did? They banned it.
No. This is what they do.
They banned it. They tell us we can't, because it was all like a whole nother language. And interesting in love. I remember when I was teaching my little brother and sister, and I was talking to my mum, and my mum overstood it. But my mum knew things and never ever told us. You understand?
Yeah.
I'm saying that me can't talk it. But they never ever show so. But primary school was all right, and I'm still friends with a lot of the people, and in contact with a lot of the people who I went primary school with. We still speak to each other on the phone. I got a phone call today that one of our old primary school friends moved on to the ancestors yesterday. Today, actually. And so, these are people that I've known the best part of 56 years. So we're still friends. We still meet up from time to time, and we still stay in contact, So, I made good family. I call it family. because we're
For
that
those
close.
outside of the UK, they may not know the ages of the primary school children here. So that's what, from the age of about 5 up to about
Yeah,
11.
we started at four in our
Four.
school. Yeah.
Okay, from 4, and then you'll be in primary school up to the age of 11 or so,
Mm-hmm.
or you
Yeah,
get
11, and then you go to what they call what we used to call secondary school, but I think they call it year 7 now, innit?
yes,
Year
yes,
7, 8, 9, following the Americans, you know. As a
yeah.
change, I follow the American.
Uh, uh,
Mm.
And so
Yes.
imagine, you experience racism and you recognize at such a young, tender age that your teacher just didn't seem to like black people, black children. And you recognize that you have been treated differently. And what an insult. You recognize as well that being asked to stand in a dustbin was just such an
Yeah, I just
insult.
knew, I just knew to myself that, I was someone that tell me about standing in that dustbin. I'd rather get the slipper than standing in the dustbin. There was something about standing in that dustbin that didn't resonate with me. I mean, no, so my name I was standing at the dustbin. And
Wow.
they used to always threaten me with my mom. We're going to call your mother. I said, call her there. Right, standing in that dustbin.
Yeah.
I
Because
was
those
prepared.
days, your parents could beat the children those days.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I
our
believe me, my
parents
mom
of
did.
that generation used to beat. And they knew that if we got in trouble at school, we'd probably get a beating. So,
You
yeah,
got good, yeah, you got a good hiding,
yeah.
you know. But it toughen you up for when you fight man on road. So me never partial, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, and that was in primary school, but at the same age in the area that I grew up, which was between Clapham and Brixton, Acre Lane, you know, then you had a whole different your area friend then. You understand the people that you grew up in, they went to, like some of them would have gone Sudbourne if they live the opposite side of Acre Lane, and some would have gone Santley. You understand? And so,
Yes.
but we were all friends. We'd meet up at Boys Brigade,
Yeah.
or we'd meet up on the, just playing out in the area. So you had that set of friends, and that was beautiful in itself, you know. And then even in that same period, I had to go Sunday school. So you had your Sunday school friend them who come from different areas then. And
Yeah.
so there's a whole set of other people that I'm still close with. I still see them from time to time. We call each other from time to time. And so it expanded the family, because what would happen is some people from in central Brixton will come to our Sunday school. And that's how you knew them people there.
Yeah.
And then when you went to secondary school now, it expanded even more.
Right.
You know? And then when you went to play centers and youth clubs, you met up with other young Africans.
Yes.
And we all had a kind of a similar background. You understand me? So, so growing up in Brixton, I have to say, for me, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, in terms of the people them that you saw, the different type of things that was going on.
Yeah.
And, there was a whole load of different things. And then, from primary school growing up, you saw these black shops them starting to open. And there was a shop called, the first shop I know, I was about probably 6 at the time. There was a man called Mr. Christie on the corner of a place called Stratleven Road and Acre Lane. And he was probably one of the first men to bring yam and banana in that part of Brixton, So that's why our parents would go and buy them yam and them banana and all them something there, and hard food, and then, we had other shops like Cliffs would open up, and then you had the best, you had Cynthia Caff, over the bridge. You had his name again, his name will come to me. But the whole area of Brixton, you had different section of Brixton, and we all used to just mingle. The racist part of growing up there was the police. Once you reach a certain age, the police mess with you. When you get into your teens, into secondary school, they had this law they called sus. And they would constantly harass you. And I remember one time they arrested me. I was 15 years old, with my friend. He was 18, and we were going to meet our other brethren them to play football. in the
Mm-hmm.
park, and they arrested us and done us for sus. You know,
Wow.
it was a law that the
Mm-hmm.
police can take you to the station, tell a lie that they thought you were stealing something. They don't have to produce no evidence, take you
Mm-hmm.
to court,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, 8 times out of 10, the court will find you guilty.
Yeah.
So you get a record as a
Mm-hmm.
thief, even though
Yeah.
you didn't thief nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through
That
all of
was
that.
their agenda at that time, wasn't it? To criminalize young Black people.
But
But
you know why that was, Sister Shanice?
no. Mm-hmm.
Because my theory is this,
Mm-hmm.
that when our parents came to this country, they were invited. In fact, they were invited by the government at the time. And they even
Mm-hmm.
sent the most racist of them to invite them, which was Enoch Powell.
Yes.
And they were invited to this country. So I want people in the world to know that Africans who resided in Britain were invited
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
here. And at the time when they were invited, they were still part of the colony
Mm-hmm.
of Britain, yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
imperial system.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a plan for those Africans who were coming, whether
Mm-hmm.
from the continent or from the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
Because incidentally, what happened is many of their men died in the Second European War.
Mm-hmm.
And those that didn't die came back maimed and couldn't work. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And in those that was left there, a lot of them left for better pastures, which was like New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. You understand me? So they never really have a man force really here to do work. And what was left there, enough of them was criminal. They never want work. You
Mm-hmm.
understand me? I said, and you had one or two blue collar workers. So all those manual jobs, it was the Africans and the Irish that occupied them.
Right.
You know, all the jobs to do with hand, building work, African and the Irish. And when our parents came in, it had no blacks, no Irish, and no dogs.
Hmm.
But they've accepted the Irish. The dog them live in the house, and them still don't want we.
Mm-hmm.
You understand me? And
Mm-hmm.
so they had a plan for them. They want them to work as within the NHS service, within the transport service, either on the tube, the overhead train, or the buses. You understand? And then, excuse me, and then they wanted them to work within.
Oh, you've just gone on mute. I've just lost Prophet. Okay, not sure what happened there. Okay, you're back now. I lost you for a
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, there was somebody calling. So I was, yeah. So
Okay.
within that structure of Britain, you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
What they didn't have a plan for, they didn't plan for them to have children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
one.
Yes.
And two, they didn't plan that they were going to send for the children they already had. So you had two generations. You had what I define as the send for them. The one
Yeah.
them who them send for. That's the older one them. Like my oldest brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Barnya, which
Yeah.
were the people like you and I, were with Barnya. You
Yeah.
understand? Barnya
Uh-huh.
England. But you had the
Mm-hmm.
send for them and the Barnya. And they didn't plan for the send for them, and the Shozel didn't plan for the Barnya. You understand?
Right,
And
right.
so um, employment was the one them who were sent for. Many of them couldn't get work and things like that. It was quite racist at the time. Some of them did get work, but those that didn't, they end up moving into being entrepreneurs. I would use that terminology of a
Uh-huh.
different. And
Mm-hmm.
so we had that kind of structure in Brixton. You had the ones who were the hustler them on the road, and the
Mm-hmm.
one them went work, but we were all friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
incidentally at that time, Europeans didn't walk through the center of Brixton; they would walk on the periphery.
Mm-hmm.
Ernhill was still a kind of a European area. Ernhill
Mm-hmm.
at that kind of a upmarket and south of Clapham, some parts of Clapham and things like that. Most of those areas, Africans occupied them, and most of the properties that were owned by Africans. Europeans used to live in their estates or they rent tenement yard, but Africans were forced to buy properties because they couldn't get rental things. So in a place like off Coal Harbour Lane in Brixton, a place called Summer Leighton Road, an old rental industry ended up there because a lot of Africans bought a lot of properties down there. And what would happen is when Africans came from either the continent or from the Caribbean, they could find somewhere to rent. And when they got on their feet, them could go somewhere else and buy somewhere. They didn't want them to catch roots. So what happened is the council compulsory purchased a lot of those homes. And those Africans had to leave their homes, sell their properties, and then they built these big old flats and things like that. And incidentally, that happened with my parents. 3 years after they finished paying for their house, the council said they wanted the entire road. And so you had to sell your property. They fought them for a few years, but it came to that to sell their property. And whenever my parents went to buy another property in Brixton, they got gazumped. And the last house they went for was a house in Trent Road. And they lost their money. They put a deposit down in it. And they were supposed to sign the papers the afternoon. The man agreed the price and everything. And by the end of the morning, the estate agent called and said, "Oh, the man ain't selling the property again." But it was a unwritten law not to sell Africans no properties in Brixton again. Hence why how you see it is today.
So
you can't afford unless you're a millionaire or you're earning. If you're earning 3 figures, you can't buy a property in Brixton. You can't even rent a room there.
And this is the irony because, at the opening, you were saying that Brixton has changed now. Today, it's a very different complexion to what it was, back in the 60s and the 70s. And, what you've just touched on there is one of the reasons why this has happened, one of many reasons why this has happened. So, but if we go back to the early 60s and 70s, as you were saying, most of our people weren't able to get an accommodation. They weren't able to rent from the Europeans who had properties there because they didn't want Black people in their house. So Black people, as you said, were forced to buy. And as a result of that, we all bought in certain areas like Brixton, Peckham, and then, outside of London. Yeah, in Harlesden, Willesden, Dalston, Hackney. So you had areas that were, as far as the Europeans were concerned, that were concentrated with us as Africans. And as you said, they didn't expect our parents to stay. And our parents didn't even come to stay anyway. They only came for like 5 years. And they expected, the place to be paved with gold and that they could earn some money. Because this is what they wrote in their primary school books in Jamaica, that in England, the streets are paved in gold. My parents said when they come, they found the streets paved with dog's mess. That's all it was paved with. And the little money that they was earning, most of them were unable to fulfill their dream of saving enough money to go back home, and so ended up staying and having their children and having to raise a family in the UK. And as you said,
they say they get caught up
those
in
cultural differences.
Malta.
Yes. And we've lost Prophet again. Hopefully he'll come back on. Maybe a call came through again. Did a call come through again?
Yeah, because I got the phone on Do Not Disturb, but for some strange reason it's allowing the call to come through. I don't know why. I got it on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah. So back in those days, 60s and 70s, because our people were unable to rent wherever they wanted to, areas like Brixton had a lot of Black people living there. And
a lot of African people lived in I mean, the house that our parents had, they rented out the upstairs to families. At one point, they were a family from Barbados. Next family, it was a couple from Nigeria, So I had contact with different Africans when we were young. You understand me?
Yeah,
so,
and it held the community together as well, didn't it? Because it was the norm in order to afford to pay the mortgage and to get by and to bring up the family. Because back in those days, most of our parents had large families. We had 8 children in our family, and that was the norm, 7, 8, 9 children. Our parents would have, and they would, nearly always be married as well from when they're young. and they really pulled together and they really worked hard. And as a result, they ended up buying out most of the houses in Brixton. And because our people were proud people, what most of them did was they worked hard to fix up those properties. Because when they got those houses, I don't know about yours, but if it was like ours in Peckham, you know, back in the days, these were the houses that the Europeans didn't want. You know, the
They
doors
were
would be hanging
dilapidated,
off, the
yeah.
windows. Yeah, they were dilapidated in a state,
And
often
none of
black
them,
listed
none of
as
them had
well.
bathrooms.
They didn't have no bathrooms in those houses.
My daddy have to put up, they never have no bathroom and they never have no inside
No
toilet.
indoor toilet, the toilet outside, no bathroom in the house.
My daddy
Us
put a
as the
inside,
Caribbean,
tile
that was
inside
like,
and a bath.
yes, you know, when you go into a house as someone from the Caribbean, you expect to find a bathroom at least with a shower, if not a bath in it. So when they were going to these houses and there was no bath in it, they said, but wait, huh? These people not beard. These people don't know how to wash. And like your dad, my dad had to put in a bathroom inside as well. Those days there was no hot water. And it did cool. Snow, icicles on the window as well, paraffin heaters. I don't know if you had all of that, Prophet. The
We have
paraffin.
perfect, but my Alma was a kind of a genius, really. Because he put in what you, them there, you know, to get hot water, if you put something called a geyser,
Yes,
yeah?
yes, yes.
And the geyser give the hot water,
Yes,
you know? So it was an instant as you turn it on, it warm up the
yes.
water.
You're
And so
lucky. We had
yeah,
to put
we
pot
were
on
able to
the
have hot water.
fire.
And paraffin lamp and all them
We
something.
had to boil the pot
You know, there was
then.
no central heating.
Yeah. No central heating in those days.
No,
That's
it was
right.
paraffin heater.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was
And so
paraffin
we
heater.
all had that in common, didn't we, growing up? And
Mm,
as you said, and our parents coming from the Caribbean, most of them were Christians. And so whether we liked it or not, as you said, you went to Sunday school, we had to do the church thing. And,
mm,
you know, we got to know, we had a church family as a result of that. And
mm-hmm,
so many
mm-hmm.
other families. We had the street family, the school family, you know, your blood family. And it's beautiful. Now, you talked about the youth clubs back in the day. Tell us about the youth club and, you know, the young people, how we got together back in the days in the youth club, because a lot of the youth clubs today have been closed down, you know, but back in our days, what was the benefit of the youth clubs? And why do you think, you know, what's your theory
Well,
about why they may have closed them down?
well, the youth club was quite interesting because I went to several youth clubs in different parts of the Brixton, from central Brixton to North Brixton, South Brixton, you know, East Brixton. There were youth centers everywhere, you know. But a man that I must mention is a man called Astro Parkinson. Affectionately known by anybody in my age group who grew up in Brixton as Parky.
Mm-hmm.
And that man was one of the greatest Africans in Lambeth, in my opinion, and maybe to others. But nobody really knows about this man. And he was like a head youth worker for quite a few of the different youth clubs. And he fought to keep the youth clubs open. And when the uprising happened in 81, and Scarman, which they call Lord Scarman, came around and did a report into why the uprising took place. One of the things he said in his report, that the era was underdeveloped. There was no investment and things like that, as well as saying about institutional racism and stuff like that. And so what happened is monies came in. I don't know if it was from the European Union or something like that to try and develop the area. And at that period, they were shutting down a lot of the youth clubs. Yeah, because we had a youth club up in Brixton Hill called Knights Youth Club. You had St. Paul's Youth Club. They closed that, and then you had St. Matthew's, and then you had a Beng, and there were a few others. You had Shepherds, you know, and there were a few other Slay Gardens. You know, these are all the different places that we would travel as young people, you know. And what happened is some monies, they come around. And people had to bid for this money to create something for young people in Brixton, in the Lambeth area. And he applied for it alongside some of his, he was a very experienced man, and put forward a bid so that he could open youth clubs. But what he wanted to do with his youth club was quite different. They weren't going to be a place that you just go and play table tennis or hit pool and thing. You'd go there and you'd learn something. So you'd learn maths, English, science, that type of stuff, you know. And he lost that bid. And they gave the money to known criminals, people who they knew were engaging in criminal activities. And that really tore, that was like the last straw for Parky. And not too long after that, he migrated back to the Caribbean, to Jamaica.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what happened with that money? It got abused. They had a place on Atlantic Road, what they called a hut, right on road, you know. And they had a blueprint in there, and it was supposed to be a kind of community center. But the man them just mess up the money, do all kind of something with the money. Books weren't right, and they shut it down. Incidentally, the police raided the place, you know, found all kind of drugs and them things. Then they just shut it down. It's now flats. They turn it into apartments. You understand me? And these were the kind of things that they did so that Africans couldn't keep a root in Brixton. Because you see, Brixton, you can get to anywhere in the world from Brixton.
Mm-hmm. Very central.
You know, all you have to do, you jump on that Victoria line, yeah, and it can take you. You can go end up at Heathrow, or you can end up at Gatwick, you can end up at Kingston or Accra. You understand me? I say. So it's very central. Yeah, it's a very central place. And I discovered this many years ago when I used to do my radio show on Power Jam. And I warned people. I said, we're going to lose Brixton. Because you could see it happening. You understand what I'm saying? But before we get there, growing up in the 60s and the 70s was very exciting. Brixton was a hub. I mean, we had so many record shops. Every road you go on, me and Reggie, you had dozens of record shops. And you can go and buy your reggae music, your calypso, your soul, and them thing there. Then you had the sound system. And incidentally, one of the sounds from Brixton, one of the owners, he died and he was buried last strong. A guy they call a song called Small Axe, you know, and it was run by a brother called Keith Preddy, but they call him Axe, and he was a sound system, you know, and at his funeral, I didn't even get the information for his funeral, but his funeral was last strong. It was a big funeral, and we had all these different little sounds: Supertone, Eunice, Coxon, Tobbies, you know, I Spy, you know, all these different sound systems in Brixton. And then we had the little independent man, them. Even I did have a little sound one time called Magic. And he had all these different sounds. You had MJR Road Show, you had Studio One, JB Crew, you know, I mean, there were so many. And we all knew each other, you know, and there was an industry with that music. You understand? People play out, you have dance and them thing. And we come here and make people know so them can rave from late to early hours of morning and all sitting there.
Yeah.
You know? You had the blues dance and you had the shubeen, and then you had the club dance, them like Bali Clouds, we had another song called Ito Rockers, Dome Beat, Jam Down Rockers. You know what I mean? There was a whole heap of different sounds, you know, and the sound system affricated us about who we were, the music that they pumped out in that time. You know, I learned about Marcus Garvey from hearing Burning Spear. And I was like, well, you know, probably 12 of them time then. Yeah. And when we heard that Garvey's Ghost, who's this Garvey they're talking about? So he was interested. And, you know, a Bang, which is called Caribou now, on a Wednesday night, they would show videos of like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and all them man there.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about when we was 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
So all the man them will do it. Soprano B and Coxon. You know?
Yes.
You had all them kind of sound system. You know, Mellows, Roadshow and all them something there. You know, there's all heap of sound.
Yeah.
And you had a school called Tulsa Boys and Dick Shepherd Girls. And dance used to go on in a Dick Shepherd and all them places. Then sports, we'd have some of the man them, the local hustler man them, every year they would hire out Ernil Stadium. It's a cycling stadium. And we'll have sports days in there and music up and all them kind of things. So, you know, it was quite exciting. And then a lot of African business open and things like that. So you could go and get your different type of things. And, you know, would have to meet my mother at a certain time for drag the basket, go Brixton, let me she like going Brixton with her. And she stand up there with her friend them, and you know, it's an all day thing because they're just chatting and all them things. And then they will buy something, and say somebody, yes, and then everything I go. And all them something there, you know. So it was a bustling, it was a bustling metropolis, I should say. You know, a lot of different businesses. There's a lot of illegal businesses going on, and you know, there was a pretty side of Lambeth and Brixton, but there was also a not so pretty side of it. You know, and we've heard all the stories that, you know, there were gang fights and things like that. And, you know, I hear a lot of people say, oh, we weren't like that when we was youth. Maybe the fatalities weren't like that. Or we didn't even, it wasn't news when an African person was killed back then. But those things happen. Maybe not as much as now. I think we were more kind of unified then because we could go to any area.
Yes, yes.
Anywhere African people was, we could go there.
Exactly.
And the majority of times, we were welcome.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember
clubs had a lot to do with that, didn't it? The youth clubs really helped to build the bridges, didn't it, between communities? Because as you said, you'd go from one youth club to the other, from another youth club to another. And I don't know about your area, but it was in the youth club that the music started, the dances started.
Yeah, man.
Really started to appreciate the sound systems that you're talking about and the lovers rock music industry that our generation created, you know, from the youth club days through to the partying days. And so, yeah, there was that real bonding, wasn't there? That real commonality of experience and maybe the youth club, you know, was kind of central to all of that. And they saw also that was happening in those youth clubs, the organization, the coming together on a political level, because, you know, people started to organize and we were linking with our brothers in Jamaica, in America. Black Power movement in America was on fire them times. I mean, tell me a little bit about maybe the impact that may have had in the Brixton area, the days of civil rights movement.
Well, I would have been very young. I was very young at that time when that Black Power movement. But my oldest brother, who is now an ancestor, Clarky, you know, Scott, he became a member of the Black Power movement in Brixton. That was run by Darker Sal and their man there at the time. But my brother's he's about 16 at the time. But I always remember a march that they did when they marched Acre Lane and around Brixton and around the side roads. And my brother was part of the march, and I was quite proud when I saw him in it. But I would have been about 6 years old because he's 10 years my senior. And I would have been about 6 years old that time. But that impact there. But I never got involved in any of that until later on in life. I got more involved in the sound system thing, the raving thing, going out, dressing up a rundown girl and all and sitting there. You know, I kind of got caught up in all of that melee. You understand what I'm saying to you? Yeah, so going out for me, I mean, we were sneaking out and raving from we was about 13, going out of Clouds. When Clouds done, we went down to the Hole, a place they called on Lando Road, run by a sound called Idle Rockers. big up the rockers, man, them if them are listen. You know what I mean? And jam down rockers in them, man.
Yeah.
Also, we used to go to, we're raving from we're about 13 years old. We're raving for a number of years.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I think the news went around,
club,
didn't it? In the youth clubs, where the rave was going to be, where the party
the
was
rave started in, with Bilal Little Sound in the youth club. I remember Sharpman. And anybody who knows about sound system in the Brixton knows a man called Sharpman. Tony. Like he could build sound. He could build boxes like nothing. I think he's still doing it now.
Oh,
but
wow.
I remember when he first built a sound, I'm talking about when we was about 14. You know what I mean? So the old sound system, the music was what really Africated us.
Yeah.
The people them that we were listening to, like Dennis Brown, Gregory Isaac, Alton Ennis, John Oates, Ken Booth, Bob Marley, Burning Spear, you know what I mean? Mighty Diamonds.
Yeah.
All of these kind of groups who were singing quite cultural music at the time. And even though we had a genre that was created called Lovers Rock, it still came out of music that them man they was making in Jamaica.
Yeah.
You understand me?
Yeah.
So it really, but the thing I wanna pinpoint is that there was no area in Brixton, Lambeth that no African could go to, that you feared going. So now our young people, like even my son was telling me the other day, if he went into a particular set of flats, he feared being killed.
Wow.
And he only lives up the road from those flats.
Wow.
With those very same flats, I walk up in them all the time when we are youth. I used to go up there to play table tennis. The first time I went in the flat, my
was there. Is there a youth club there now?
I don't know if they got a youth club there now, but they used to have a youth club at Jubilee Hall back in the day, and Sounds used to play in there. But there was no area in the Lambeth area as a African youth that I could not go and didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
Because once black people was there, we felt safe. Because remember, there was areas that there was like you see like Old Kent Road.
Yes.
You couldn't catch you on Old Kent Road by yourself, white man get a beating, Old Kent Road, Burmans, Alamira, Croydon, Putney. Them places was European strongholds.
Yeah.
And if them catch all in Almere, Mitcham and Almere, they're in trouble.
That's right. They didn't want to see black people in their areas. We move in, they would move out. They try and give us a beat.
A lot of those people.
Yes.
You find a lot of those people. They will come to Brixton. So my friend clientele is wide because I had a lot of close friends like in Balham, Tooting, Wandsworth. You understand? Stockwell, Kennington, Camberwell, Dulwich. Anywhere African people were, we had friends.
Yes.
And I remember, I could remember, in the early 80s, like we were going raving in Leeds, in Chapeltown, Moss Side, Manchester. Yeah. Tuxteth, Liverpool. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, that bonding was there, wasn't it?
Birmingham. It was regular in Birmingham. St. Paul's, Bristol.
Yeah.
There was nowhere that African people was in them days when we were growing up that it weren't safe to go to.
Yeah, yeah.
And, not like now.
We travel there for the parties, the get-togethers. Yeah, it was phenomenal. We got
sometimes you got a party where you know the people them. You don't even know them.
You just welcome.
There's a party. Where is it? Where is it? Yeah. And you got on, you listen up for the music. Yeah, it's over there. And you're gone. And you knock the door and you're gone in, and nobody ain't selling drinks. Drinks free. This guy in there just rave.
Oh, Nana, this is your story, but I can identify with it so much. I'm just trying not to jump in your story too much, but
I know.
No, but it's bringing back the memories.
Because it's a similar story.
Exactly.
Sis, it's a similar story.
Yeah.
It's a similar story, and you met different characters.
Yeah.
Like even some of the hustler man them. Back
Yeah.
them time, as a youth man, you can go in places like the line. They run it. Hey boy, go on to school.
Yeah.
Whereas now, the man them who's engaging in criminality
Mm.
encourages young children to come
Yeah.
and do criminality. But when we were growing up, the big man them, they weren't having it.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they would run us to school.
They look
Hey
out
boy,
for
where
the
you
young
go to school?
ones.
Go on to school.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? So you see how the whole dynamics has
Mm-hmm.
changed. You know,
Mm.
I remember an incident that happened. I probably was about 9 years old at the time. And me and my friend Albert knows we were playing cricket on Solon Road, and we was using the lamppost as the wicket. And I was batting at the time. And we saw these two policemen them run down this black man. And they caught him on the corner of Solon Road and Kepler Road. And they were punching him, punching him. They really getting beaten. And I don't even know who this guy was. Say, you, give me a bat. And he took the cricket bat, you know. Yeah. And just like India just beat England in the test there, him lick him for six. Right. And he said, boy, you know, boy, to the other, I don't know, the policeman tried. He brought them up and run them down. I was 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then they must have gotten their radio for backup. And then you could hear ding, 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 ding. Police might come. And what the guy did, there was a truck, and he ran underneath the truck and he hauled onto the drive shaft. And he hauled upon this drive shaft. And the police came around and said, did you see where he go? Did you say, go? Nobody said nothing. That was another thing as well. We didn't talk to police.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We never talked to
Man,
police.
police wasn't friend.
Yes. So we weren't telling them nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they never caught the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? I remember that. I was about 9 years old then.
Mm-hmm.
Solon Road.
Yeah.
So there was that kind of,
yes.
you know, if you see a black, and another thing was, if you saw white man them rushing a black man, you were in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were just
You
in.
wouldn't stand and watch.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. But
Get
now the
involved.
dynamics have changed, you know?
Yeah.
You got young African youths beating up other black men them and killing them with Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the old dynamic has changed. And to be quite honest, we were quite a welcoming community. We welcomed anyone. If you're white, we never run you.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was the music, wasn't it? Because as you said, we brought the life, we brought the energy, we brought the music to the UK prior to the sound system days, prior to the music that came with that generation and the first and the second generation in the UK. The white men, they just had their pubs and they'd go to the pub and have a pint of beer and you know, there was much in the way of music. It was really quiet. And by 11 o'clock, they'll be going home at night.
Well, they did, you know, they had their music things. They had the mods and the rockers and they would have their things out at the seaside and those things. They did have kind of a nightlife.
Okay.
But the
well,
nightlife was more
area. I'll speak of our area then. In our
no, what I'm saying, no, because you got to get the history correct, you see, because the nightlife that they had was more for the criminals of their group, the gangster them. The gangster them had nightclubs that they went to, but the average person didn't really engage in all of that type of stuff. But they did have a little kind of nightlife. We know, our age group know we are rave. Raving was our thing. I mean, they were going early. When they were going on, we were going out. So when the pubs closed, that's when we were going out. And many of our dances would go into all hours in the morning. Yeah. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock a morning.
And, you know, they didn't understand that, most of them, because back then with their pubs, as you said, it would close at 11 o'clock at night, you know, and, you know, that would be like maybe the second leg of our night out. The earlier part might be the youth club, and then it'd be on to the party, then it'd be on to the after party, you know. So, and when we were partying, we were the ones who standing outside the parties maybe as well with a drink, having a chat and talking, you know, and you'd often get the police then coming by, you know, looking menacingly at the groups of young people as they're outside the club having a good time. And sometimes they get the owner of the club to insist that the young people, you know, black people in the streets go inside. And now today in the UK, what do you see up and down the high streets? Yeah, they're young people outside their wine bars, outside their cafes, outside their clubs, with their drinks, you know, and not being interfered with whatsoever by the police. Wow. But if I go back to your story when you were talking about, you know, the racism in some parts of the of London, you mentioned Bermondsey, the Old Kent Road, etc., where a lot of racism existed, and the racists would like attack black people if they saw them. This also happens in Eltham, and we had the situation, didn't we, with the Stephen Lawrence case. I wonder if you want to say a little bit to our listeners about.
Well, before Stephen Lawrence, there was a brother called Roland Adams.
Yes.
That was sometime before Stephen Lawrence, and it was round about the same area up in the Welling area. And you know, when they murdered Stephen Lawrence, that was in the 90s. It generated some real, because I think at that time, I think African people thought, yeah, we're part of the society now, and you know, we've arrived and things. But the death of Stephen Lawrence was kind of a wake-up call. But before that, we had the 1981 uprising, where that was one of the greatest days of my life, because it was an opportunity to get back at the police, you know? And
so
we had
our listeners know, let our viewers know what happened in 1981, because many may not.
It was April of 1981, around about the 11th, 10th of April 1981, when unfortunately 2 Africans were having a fight. One got stabbed, and the man them called an ambulance, and it was a police meat wagon that came, and they took him in the car, and they wouldn't take him to the hospital, and the man them decided, say, nah, man, they bust up the police them, drag him out of the car, put him in the car, and took him to the hospital. The police didn't like that, and so they thought, well, you know, we're going to get some revenge on that, and that started what we call the Brixton uprising. We don't call it a riot. And that really unleashed a lot of the pent-up frustration that the elders above us was having with them and us ourselves, because I was 18 at the time, as a youth. And I remember it clearly. And it lasted from, they'd say it lasted 2 days, but they're telling you lies. It lasted from Friday night to Tuesday morning. And we were having running battles with them up and down Brixton. And yeah, we get a chance to put it on them. Yeah. Because all of that frustration, because one of the things that I didn't explain, you know, the police, they used to go around in vans. They have these vans they call SPG van, and they see a group of you, a young African youth, and they'll grab you in the van, show you in the van, and they will beat you up and then fling you out. And that is true. I'm not telling you no lie. So sometimes when you used to see that van, you don't step. You don't have to have the nothing, you know. But you know if any of them man they hold you, is a beating you again. So move from you, make a move. You know them way there.
And if you make a move, they say you're guilty of something.
I remember the beat. Second brother I was telling you about who taught us the gypsy. They beat him up when he was about 14, 15. Bust up his face in Brixton police station. Brixton police station killed enough black man.
Yeah.
One brother named Doza, I think he was the first person them killing at that station there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was one of the stations that had such a bad reputation for beating up and murdering black people.
Brixton police station, Kennington police station. Them do have a police station upon Union Road.
Yes.
So we see it. That was another one. And the mad one on Wall Road called Carter Street. You don't want to get catch another station there. You're definitely going to get a hiding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was very kind of volatile at that time, you know? You know, growing up. But that was the kind of bad parts of it. You understand? But the good parts of it is that I know what a community felt like.
Yeah.
We don't have that now.
Exactly.
You understand? Walking down the road and nearly everybody you see, you know them. All the elders, you know them.
Yeah.
They know you. They know your parents. And
Yeah.
even if you went like out of your little vicinity and you went into a different part of Brixton, by the time you're done talking to the people, them, yeah, they know your parents.
Somebody knows somebody. Yeah. Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So it was wonderful growing up in an area where the majority of people that you saw looked like you, and the majority of people that you interact with looked like you. You understand? And so there was a sense of safety, in a sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There was community pride then as well. There wasn't, no one was ashamed really of being black or anything like that. There was that sense of pride that we had, and I think that came through the music and the education through the music and the community spirit and togetherness that we had. But then you talked about a political level, moves were afoot to destroy our communities. So we've talked about, the tactics of the police and their role in destroying our community, criminalizing our young men and women, and also giving our young men such a hiding that some people never recovered from those hidings. Some people ended up from the police station into the mental institutions where they would get injected. Unfortunately, would never recover from that incident. And then you had, the local authorities who were compulsorily taking away from the Africans the houses that they had bought and spent all of their life fixing up and building. As we said, they were in such a dilapidated condition when our parents bought them. And so, they had to spend a lifetime fixing them up. And then the council would come along and say, sorry, chaps, you'll have to find somewhere else to live. We want to take back this house. And in fact, we want all the houses on this street, which happen to be occupied
Well,
by
it's not
men.
that, no, it's not the houses. It's not the houses they said they want, because they can't have the houses. The house belongs to you. What don't belong to you is the land the house is on. And so if the council says they want the land, then
you have
they
to
call
sell the house.
compulsory purchase. So they have to pay you whatever the price the property's worth at the time. But you can't tell them you're not selling because they own the land.
And that happened
so
up and down, didn't it? Our communities and it broke up, our communities. Because I remember the road that I grew up on, I think there might have been like 2 or 3 families on that street of about 30, 40 houses. And, we all knew each other on the street, the families from Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaica, wherever we all knew each other. And all of that was destroyed. And then behind the compulsory purchase came the regeneration and the regentrification.
Well, I can talk a bit about that, sis.
Go ahead.
In terms of Brixton, after 1981, then they had then we had the 1985 when September the 30th, 1985, September the 28th, 1985, when they shot Cherry Gross, my cousin, because they were after her son, who didn't live at the address, and that ignited another uprising, And after that, they started to fuel money into the community. So, 1981, I told you the situation with that. Around about the 85 area period now. After that, they started some more money came into Brixton. And one of the things that happened was that I can't remember if it was called I know Brixton Challenge was one of them. I don't know if that was the one at the time, but what it was, there's a pool of money. I think it must have come in from Europe to develop the place. And if you was a young African and you had a business plan to open up a business, you could get money to start that business. Now they have a building in Brixton. It's called Bon Marsh, but Foot Locker and TK Maxx occupy it now. But before that, what happened is it was leased out so that people could open businesses in there. And people took advantage of that. and opened up a lot of business in there. I mean, it was really firing. You know, yeah, at a brethren, he was a tailor, he was in there. You had food shops, curtain dig, you name it, it was in there, and it was thriving. Your husband can tell you about it, you know. Iraq can tell you about it, you know.
I know it personally. Many black businesses in there as well.
It was all black businesses in there, and it was thriving. I'm sure Errol can tell you about it.
But and there was another building as well, wasn't there? Not too far from there.
No, you're talking the
business unit.
The Eurolink Centre.
Yeah, there was a Eurolink Centre as well.
Yeah, no, the Eurolink Centre came after that one. That came after. This one was in the late 80s, I think early 90s. Yeah, and it was thriving. It was booming. You know what the council did? They sold the building. And they sold the building, and all those businesses had to shut down because they had nowhere else to go.
And they didn't relocate them either, which they could have done.
You know, so there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
You know, they prop you up to tear you down.
Yeah. So they were interfering. So they had policies to undermine us in terms of our housing, policies to undermine our efforts in terms of our economic development and our employment opportunities. And say a little bit about what was employment opportunities like for black men around those times as well. Was it easy
I remember
for men to get jobs, or was it difficult?
It depended on what kind of job you was going for. I remember I did what they call a yacht course. Yeah. And it was in plumbing. I wanted to be a plumber, actually. And I did this course. And then I started to look, I was about 17 at the time. And I started to look for, no, I was 16 at the time. I started to look for jobs in plumbing. But I could only be a plumber's mate. And I remember, I never forget this. I applied for a job. And when I was going for the interview the morning, my dad said to me, don't care what them said to you. Wherever the job there, tell them so you can't get there. Because if me have to take it there before me got my job, me would do that. And I went to the job. I was supposed to be, and I'm not a man for time, you know that, Shanice. But I was supposed to be there something like 8:30. I got there 8:15. And then I waited 15 minutes. And then I saw this white guy come in. He goes, oh, have you been in there? I goes, no. He goes, I'm late. I go, what time are you supposed to be? He was supposed to be there at 8 o'clock, but he didn't turn up. Anyway, I went in, and the man asked me a whole load of questions about plumbing, which I answered. And then he said to me, oh, well, we work far, you know. I said, doesn't matter where you work. What time? He goes, yeah, well, you got to be on Saturday. I said, no problem, I can get there. Yeah? And then he said, okay, then is there any questions that you want to ask me? I said, yeah, have I got the job? He said, oh, I can't answer that right now. So I went outside, yeah, and then I see the white boy, and the white boy going. And the white boy walked in, and I went to the toilet. And by the time I could go to the toilet and come out, the white boy finished his interview. I was in there for about 15, 20 minutes. So as I'm walking out that thing, I goes, oh, you came out quick. I goes, what did I say to you? He goes, oh, yeah, I got a job. I start Monday.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was like that with everybody. Some people had a different experience. I can only go by the experience I did.
A lot of people had that experience, hence why legislation, the race relations.
I was young at the time. But
I
got jobs. I still got jobs. I worked, you know, eventually I got, and then I did a little buying and selling myself. I used to have a stall with my oldest brother. You know, I was now with the ancestors. We used to sell crockery. And in actual fact, what we wanted to do was sell Jamaican art food. But when we applied to Lambeth for the license, they wouldn't give us the license to sell it.
Wow.
And this was in the early 80s. Yeah, we're talking about probably 82, 83. They wouldn't give us a license to sell food.
Wow.
And then so what we did, we and we went to Battersea. They wouldn't give us a license to sell food. So we ended up selling crockery. I did that for a couple of years. Then I moved on from there. Then I started to sell women's lingerie and men's underwear, and I'd go up to Aldgate East and Aldgate East and Lever Lane and buy stuff, because them there's all sale up Aldwych and them time there. And you go buy stuff, jump on, and you come back and you sell them to people and things like that. That's quite like that. My mum orientated me in that way. You know, because my mum used to do that. And then I got a job. I got a job with British Telecom. I worked with them for about probably 7 years. Before I left, and they were racist as well. Very, very racist. British Telecom.
Someone in the
I don't know how they are now, but
British Telecom.
And then I worked for Telewest.
They're not as big as they used to be, that's for sure. And they were awful. Yeah, I mean, they lost so many companies when that sector went sort of commercial.
No, they're still big, they're the biggest thing in Britain.
Still big, yeah.
They
had the
now
monopoly
linked up with
at
EE.
one time.
They've now linked up with EE. But I work for Telewest, Cable and Wireless, Mercury.
Yeah.
You know?
Some good jobs.
NTL. I did a whole load of jobs. But the job I did that I enjoyed the most was painting and decorating. I still do it now. And I actually enjoy it. I like the job. I like doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay.
But I do photography. And that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I did a bit of stand-up comedy. I used to put on shows. I used to put on my own dances and things like that. You know, did the whole genre of that stuff. And that all that stuff learned. I've grown up in Brixton. It was like it was an Africation.
Yeah.
I use that word Africation instead of education. You know.
What's so interesting as well about all of what you said there, you know, is that you didn't just focus on one thing, you know, and that's what was special as well about our generation. You know, we would have a multitude of things going on, you know. So if you wasn't successful at one, you know, and you know, our parents used to say, put your hand to something, try and do something. I think this generation is kind of encouraged us to maybe try and stick at one job or something like that. But Nana, let me bring in the audience. We've been hearing from you, and I've been interjecting. It's been so interesting. So many comments in the chat. So just going to try and bring in some of those. G is saying 1981, the days of Maggie Thatcher. Yes, indeed. Scroll up. Do you want to comment on Maggie Thatcher? When she was
you know,
the Iron Lady in those days? Go ahead.
You know, I went to school and then even in my early teenage years, late teenage years, you know, Maggie was the person that was leading the Conservative Party. And what was interesting about the music scene when we were growing up is when we had when the MC scene started. So when it moved from Tosin to Mike Chanter, you know, so you had U-Roy, Prince Jazzbo, John Wayne, you know, Big Youth, I-Rai, U-Rai, all those music. That was the Senfa generation. Which they would be around about 70 now, in their 70s, But the Barney generation now, that created what they call Lovers Rock. Out of Lovers Rock came the MCs, them, like Tipper Irie, Asha Senator, Smiley Culture, Ricky Rankin, Daddy Rusty, Colonel, Johnny Dollar, you know, all these different Lana G, all these different MCs, you know, even Leslie Lyrics, you know, these, a guy called IP, he ended up committing suicide, but he had lyrics. But the interesting thing about the lyrics, them man they were chatting, was actually about people like Thatcher. And then you had General Levy. He did a tune, Baggy Stink. That's what kind of hold down his career going further than it, because he was the number one at the time. But
Oh,
they have lyrics like him.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember,
And
remember, Smiley Culture as well.
yeah,
And
yeah, I mentioned
he's
it.
got the
Yeah,
police. Yeah,
yeah, police officer. Now give me
yeah,
you know. But what happened is what was interesting about those people is that their lyrics was more about politics, or they would have joking lyrics.
yeah,
You understand? It
yeah.
wasn't about killing another black man,
Uh-uh, uh-uh.
yeah,
Mhm,
or that type of stuff. Yeah. Although they would have their disagreements and in song clash and things like that. But if you
mhm.
listen to the I always remember a lyric that Tipper did, yeah. And he spoke about experience that happened to him. He said, I was walking in a Brixton by one youth I was detained. He said the youth start for course, bust a knife and take me chain. All I could do was complain. I mean, it was that type of lyrics they were chatting, but in terms, a lot of them had lyrics about Margaret Thatcher. It's a Bonner, the conservative. You know what I'm saying? You don't
Mm,
hear any of these rappers
mm, mm,
or these drill artists then with
mm,
that kind of, and if you do, they're quite underground.
mhm,
But
mhm.
back then, our DJs and our MCs was on it hard. And
Yeah,
that was another way of Africating the rest of people them about politics.
absolutely. I learned about Marcus Garvey at parties. No one
Mm-hmm.
remember what Marcus Garvey.
Marcos Garvey, yeah.
Remember that? Who
Burning
is
Spear.
Marcus Garvey? Yes, 7 miles of black star
And you,
line that's coming
and you
in.
remember that tune by Fabian,
Which
yeah?
one's
Prophecy.
prophecy? Yes.
Prophecy, Garvey, prophesy. So we
Uh,
learned about Garvey
yeah,
in those tunes.
yeah. We
You
learned
understand what I'm saying to
we
you?
learned our history as we were
Mm-hmm.
dancing to the music. Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
real. So let me go back to the chat as well. Where is it? I think it was Sheriff Seth was saying that she was remembering the seaside trips, and how she used to love going with the
Oh, we
old.
used to go with Sunday school.
Yeah. Well, they'd
Yeah,
organize the
yeah.
trips, isn't it? And everybody bring their own food. They never used to buy any food at the seaside. 'Cause everybody bring
No,
their
no,
own
no, no, no.
there.
And incidentally,
Uh-huh.
my pastor who's now with the ancestors, Pastor Fagan, a beautiful pastor who had a job. Yeah, he used to work for the post office. And Pastor Fagan, he wasn't one of those pastors who his sermons were never long. They were about 10 minutes, but they were so like that. And he always catches you. But the church that they used to have, and incidentally, they bought that church. They bought the land.
That's the next story again. The black
Yeah.
churches. Yes.
Because
Uh-huh.
why they
Yeah.
had to do that was
Mhm.
because when they came here from Jamaica or the different Caribbean islands, they went church. So there was no church. So they would go church. And after the church end, the pastor would come to them and say, thank you for coming, but please don't come again because you're upsetting my parishioners. So
Imagine
they had to
this.
create their own churches.
Meant to be the house
You
of God,
understand?
where they're meant to be
Mm-hmm.
welcoming in the people. They're telling our
Yeah,
people, nice to see you, but don't come back again.
don't
Imagine.
come back here.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that aside, and I'm glad they did that because it forced them to do their own thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And
Yeah,
so they
yeah,
bought their own buildings, they bought their own
yeah,
church.
yeah.
And there's no seaside that my church never went. Every
You know,
year we go on
yeah,
seaside.
yeah.
Great
Oh, yeah.
Yarmouth, Southend, Licklehampton, Margate, Ramsgate, Southgate,
Broadstairs.
Southend Pants, see,
Yeah,
Blackpool, you
yeah,
name it. Every
uh-huh,
year the
yeah,
church
yeah.
was organized and people
Uh-huh.
cook up food and them thing there. And another thing, at church Sunday school, Mr. like convention.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
That's
Uh-huh.
when them cook up the whole heap of food and thing like that. And I'll be honest, there was some of the music I used to like when they had that kind of old African spiritual dancing to more than the I mean I like that one day. So even though I didn't want to go Sunday school, but when I
Yeah,
went, it was
yeah.
enjoyable.
Yes, yes. And as you said, we'd meet another family there again,
Mm.
the Sunday school family. All the other
Yeah, and
children
I
were
just want to
forced
say,
to attend Sunday.
Muduba Fun, Owo Baba Baba wa Etia Eya, yeah, Muduba Fu, Sister Right, Muduba Fu, Pastor Fagan, Muduba Fu, Elder Quichlaw, Moduba for Millie Brown. Moduba for Mother Di Casta. Moduba for Sister Ashmead. You know, these are the elders. Moduba for Sister Fiercy. These were the elders. Moduba for Mother, that is my grandaunt. You know, and there's so many more that I could mention, but I have to mention them because these were key figures. Moduba for Dada. You know, these were key figures in our Sunday school growing up, you know, and they would discipline us, but it was always out of love. You know, so we give thanks for them.
Ashe, ashe. Going over to...
But we're not do the church thing again, you know. We're not do the church thing
that
again.
behind.
So we want people to know, we're not do the church thing again, you know. You know?
I remember in my family, my mom, you know, I could go out Saturday night, Sunday morning, me I forget up. See, we forgot church. Even if I sleep, I sleep in there. And they were strict like that because they believed, you know, they were doing the right thing for us. They didn't understand really what we were going through on the street with the police.
But at the time, Sister Shanice, to be fair to our parents, I think what they did was the correct thing at the time. Is what they knew. They weren't exposed to that information as readily as we were. Although an incident happened with me and my mother. Yeah, and I'll tell you that a little later. But they did what they thought was right for us. And I've got to be honest that the local morality that I learned going to Sunday school prevented me from engaging in things that I should not engage in. It was what gave me the opportunity in my mind to make the correct decision.
No right from wrong.
Not to get involved in certain things, you know what I mean? So I suppose for them, there's no excuse for us now because the information is readily available and, you know, we can give that information and we can learn if we choose to.
Absolutely. Rise up, Brother Kwame, he says, so true. When our people are attacked, we all came to defend each other, but unfortunately, we have lost all of that. Yeah, sadly, that seems to be the case. Word, sound, and power, these racist police, boy and girl, think they are so hard, but they have met their match, and that was definitely the case. More so in the 80s and 90s, you know, we didn't stand for nonsense, and you know, we felt that we should be treated with respect, and you know, demanded it, or they would get disrespect back. That's what they got. Kwame said, in my youth, I was listening to Kool and the Gang, Earth, Wind and Fire, and the Gap Band. Okay, Shefa said, we ended up in Wales once for a rave, and I couldn't believe the house was so full of my people. I was shocked. Wonderful time we had. Christopher welcome says, I wish I could fly to the UK and party down with Shanice and Meduty. Those were the days, I tell you. And talking about flying in, I don't know if you ever used to fly to Jamaica to go Sunsplash, Sting, or
no, I never flew to Jamaica to go Sunsplash, but we had Sunsplash in England. I remember we had Crystal Palace football ground.
Now, something else that we initiated here in the UK. Tell us a bit about those park events. I don't know to what extent you might have been involved.
Well, I remember when Sugar Miner was. I remember when Sugar Miner was in the charts with Good Thing Going, and they had something down on Retton Road with him, and he was on a open air kind of a cart thing, you know. And we went down there, and Sugar Miner was singing live, you know.
Yeah.
There was the stuff that would happen in Brockwell Park. It was a creation of the stand for them. You know, they would put on these things and like all the artists then would come over and we got there for free. Now they're having what they call the Lamb of Country show. And that's where I got arrested when I was 15. And you have to pay to go in. They've got these big things up now and you have to pay to go in and all that type of stuff. So, you know, they teeth out creativity and then they sell it back to them.
monetize it. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, aka Minister K, is responding to something that Kwame Boje says. Yeah, back then there was a strong, vibrant community spirit. Hence those marches you mentioned. I would say from 1993 was when the community spirit started to get broken. Wow.
Well, we know what caused the destruction in our community, because what happened is that the police allowed criminality to get out of control. And
Yeah,
in
yeah,
fact, the police normally brought criminals in.
yeah.
There's a book called Bent Coppers, and you can go and buy it. It's written by a white ex-policeman, and he tells you what they were constituted to do. So they would go to Jamaica,
Yes.
and one of the wickedest killer, who probably I forgot jail, they will ship them in and bring
Yeah.
them in, and they'll drop them into areas like on the line in Brixton and Sandringham Road, over there
Yeah.
in East London,
Mhm.
over in Arsden and places like that. And these guys will be committing crime. I walk around with gun and all them something there.
Mhm.
And you just
Mhm.
knew they were working with the police. If they got
Yeah.
arrested, they were out the next day and that type of stuff. So they normally brought criminals in to
Yeah.
destabilize the community, and knowing that decent Africans don't want to stay around there. And Brixton started to get this bad name,
Yeah.
of a no-go area, that type of stuff, which gave them the
Yeah.
excuse to flood the place with
Absolutely.
SPG vans and
Yeah.
things like that to accost the inhabitants. And so we know where that comes from. They
Absolutely.
created that criminal, and when you look on that, Sister
Just to
Shanice.
interject there very briefly to say, because, that generation, first generation, was coming from a Christian upbringing. And as you were saying, that Christian upbringing instilled morals, principles, and a righteous way of living. And so they needed to justify, didn't they, criminalizing our young people and tarnishing the image of our community, because we were also getting very popular. All of the music and the artists that you've mentioned there, even their young people started gravitating towards our culture, our music. They would come to our raves, etc., and parties. They started stop being as racist and stop beating us up so much, and wanted to come and join our parties. And so, they were really worried about that growing unity, not just among ourselves, but even maybe with some of their people coming into our communities to party with us and join us even in the riots. I mean, some of the riots had young white youths throwing petrol bombs at police as well. So, they decided they had to destroy it. And yeah, as you were saying, they even brought in hardened criminals from Jamaica to come into Brixton and other areas where there were large concentrations. And yeah, gave them a license to commit crime, like robbery, rapes, and all sorts, as you say, to justify coming in heavy-handedly into our community and start bust up our young people then. So yes, that's when things start getting mashed up. Back to you, Prophet.
Yeah, a story that's not been told.
Mm-hmm.
In the papers like the Sun and the Mirror, that they'd paint young African youths as muggers,
Mm.
and most of us weren't engaging that. I'm not saying that some of us weren't doing that, but the
Mm-mm.
majority of us wanted to work. And I always remember
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
in my teens, my early teens, they used to have these two agencies that resided in Waterloo. One was
Uh-huh.
called Extra Man and one was called
Yeah.
Unit Personnel. Sure, Errol can tell you about them. And in the holidays, they would employ young people
Yes.
to go work in the different industries. So I worked in the biscuit factory, the tea factory, the
Mm-hmm.
Schweppes factory up in Heathrow and
Yeah.
Coca-Cola. I worked
Yeah.
in the fur factory, yeah, the kit
Mm-hmm.
factory,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
the drinks factory. So you
Mm-hmm.
had all these different factories, and they would take young people. You could, from you was about 13, you could get a job with them in your holidays. And so
Mm-hmm.
we all used to go. There was loads of us.
Yeah.
that would go in these jobs, and everybody wanted to go Manor House. Manor House was where the fur factory was, and when you worked in the fur factory, you got tips.
Ah,
Your wages for the week might end up, you might earn £20, maybe £23, something for the week, but you could earn over 20 over your wages just in tips if you got the right people. Them, I mean, the Jews were the meanest, yeah. Jews and the Arabs were the meanest, but the Yanks, they will give you like all £5, £10 tip. Like that's big money.
Wow.
Them time there.
Yeah.
I
It's a
mean,
decent
you
tip
know,
today. Yeah.
that would be like back then. That would be like giving you £50.
Mm.
Back then, it'd be like giving you a £50 tip now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you be earning. So when a week don't know, and you get your wage, you get, so you buy like £40.
Yeah.
And you can go buy your. I remember the first trainers I bought. First was a trainers called Puma Top Fit. Never forget it. It took me 4 weeks to buy it. At sports. They used to have this trainer shop called oh God. Why did I forget their name?
It'll come
It was on
back.
Ferndale. It was on Ferndale Road. It will come back. Somebody was living around there would remind me. My memory's going now. But it was on Ferndale Road. They were on the bottom of Ferndale Road. And they were the only sports centre around there. No, you used to have Lonsdale, which was round on Acre Lane. But they were better than Lonsdale. And I remember buying that trainers there. And you could go in there and pay down on it until you get it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Frank Johnson's, that's what it was called, Frank Johnson's.
Okay.
Yeah. And they used to have a branch in Fulham. And they were there for years. And it's when JD Sports and Foot Locker come, shut them down.
Yeah. This is what these
and
big
they knew
did.
Yeah, and they knew all of us, and you're going there, and because they knew you, they just give you a discount because they just know you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could get a discount because they know you're a regular customer and things like that. You know what I mean? So, but what I'm saying is, we worked, a lot of us worked. You understand me? But they don't tell that story.
And wanted to work. Yeah.
And wanted to work. And if I wasn't working there, I was on the building site working with my old man. You understand? Laboring for my dad. My dad took us on the building site from when I was about 8, 9 years old. My little brother. Yeah.
Nice.
Teach me to mix up plaster for him. Because he was a plasterer. So most of us worked. The majority of us worked. Yes, there was some of us who was thieving. Yeah. And those who were thieving, you could either go with them or you don't go with them.
Yes.
You understand me? The majority of us were. And even the one them, when they discovered that you could go and earn a little money, they would come into holiday work too. Young people don't have that no more. Those agencies don't exist. That doesn't exist no more. You understand? So they just left in the void.
Moved out, didn't they? They moved out of London during Thatcher's era. They had to relocate because they made the price of doing business in London so expensive, and that's another reason why
there's other companies. There's other companies. There's other companies that's making a lot of money, and they could create that kind of industry again. So young people in their holidays, they can go and earn a bit of money. The Foot Loggers, the JD Sports, the TK, all these big stores, they could open a little thing like that and give young people an opportunity to learn about employment and things like that. And even in that way, they might get a bit innovative about creating their own business. But they don't do that because
because they don't want to.
They
don't
need
want
crime to justify them being around.
That's the industry that they've set up for our young people, the criminal injustice system. The police will pick up our young people, don't need to be committing a crime, aggravate them, and then when the young person reacts, then they arrest them, take them to court. The judges benefit, the solicitors benefit, the social services benefit, the probation services benefit, put them in prison. The private sector industry that runs the prisons, they all benefit. The
They will
medicinal
benefit, yeah.
companies, all feeding off of our young people going into the system. And so they don't, for that reason, they don't want to give them jobs. So it's up to, you know, our generation, I suppose, to try and provide the jobs for those young people, or for us to encourage our young people to go independent in the private sector route. Because, wow, you know, some of them are applying for like thousands of jobs and just not getting those interviews. Let's say go. We are almost at the top of the hour, and the story is just so interesting. Let's quickly flick over.
Already, we're done already.
Almost. It's 10, almost 10 to 10 already. Wow. Coffee in the house. He's saying, you're so right, brother. But the program was on Paramount. Oh, say that again.
Oh, Panorama.
BBC. So he's referring to a program that was on there. Kwame said, fam, who remembers the Aussie Biba band? And Blue Zodiac seems to remember them. To be honest, I don't remember that group. Let's say Quickness Road. It was good grounding.
I'll tell you another thing as well. When we're younger, growing up, in the holidays, the elders, the older people, they would take us as young youths, and they would take us to swimming. They would take us to the park to play football. And that don't happen no more. You understand what I'm saying? But that was a regular thing for the older guys then to look after us.
I think they were more family-centered those days, don't you think?
Yeah. You'd have like 20 man going to swimming. For them times, you had Brocco Park, Lido, but that was too cold for we. So we used to go Clapham Manor swimming pool. And it'll be like about 20 people going down there, or they take us down to the Clapham Common Park or Brocco Park to play football. And they looked after us.
Look at that. And we didn't even have WhatsApp them time there yet. You know, our people was able to organize those things so quickly. Because we had the family networks, didn't we? So that's like 2 or 3 families, or just spread the word, and we'll be there. But now, you know, we've got WhatsApp, we've got all these means of communication.
Well, we have all these things, but remember now, our children are caught up in this quagmire of they can't go across the road because it's a different postcode.
True.
And their enemies, and their enemies only look like them. Their enemies don't look not like them. Their enemies look like them. When our enemies didn't look like us.
We knew our enemies back in the day, didn't we?
You understand what I'm saying to you?
Shows how times have changed, and you know the extent to which, you know, things have really changed from our days. Now, you know, we've talked about some of the external influences that have impacted on our community that brought about those changes, and clearly, you know, institutions continue to hammer our community with misinformation, to, you know, turn us against each other and our young people against each other, you know, with all their propaganda, etc. But, you know, we want to get back those good old days. How do you think that could happen? What do we need to do to bring about those days for our children? The fun that we had growing up, the togetherness, the community spirit, you know, the industries we created. Well, you know, can those days ever come back, or are they forever gone? If they can come back, what?
You know, we evolve, Sister Shanice, we evolved, and you know, I probably need another program to tell you about the other aspect. But you know, I got involved in the liberation movement around about when I was about 28 years old, and that's when my whole life changed from the old dance business and all of that type of stuff to working in the Pan-Africanist movement. And one of those things that I engaged in was working with other Africans, like-minded Africans, in developing, working, and continue to run a school for our children, which only is on a Saturday. However, we do have a great impact in our community. And from that, we amalgamate and we work with other Saturday schools. So, for example, out of that amalgamation of trying to, Umoja to unite. We created the annual Pan-Africanist Sports and Culture Day that happens every cycle between various different African Saturday schools. It was created by Nubia, Africa, and Al Kabelan. These are different Saturday schools in different areas. However, other Saturday schools and other organizations that are doing things for our people has come on board. And so we've widened that structure and widened that communal working together. We do Kwanzas together. You know, there's African Liberation Days that happen. So, you know, there's this community that people don't really know about, but it's there. You understand? And even in our school, the chairs of the school who actually run the school now, they are the children that we taught. So they are the children we have from like 5, 8 years old. They've gone and got their careers, and now they come back and they run the school, and now they're training the next generation of African children. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, we evolve, but it's a different flavor now. You understand? And so it's there. And I must say that the majority of our children then are doing very well. You know, they're not going to the wayside. Yeah, they make mistakes, but in general, they're doing well. It's just a minority who the state has helped to criminalize and to prevent them from having opportunities to excel in that capability that they have. So all is not lost, my sister.
No, all is not lost. And the Saturday school, the complementary educational system that our community has set up, and organizations like yours run, you know, are doing a formidable job, an amazing work. And that needs to be replicated, that needs to be expanded, you know, so that more of our young people can go through those programs. Because as you said, the ones that do very well. And I know they all come out with a good sense of identity, a feeling of pride. They come out with confidence to then become teachers themselves, we're hearing. And I mean, that is absolutely awesome. And so there's so much more that we can do.
So to cut you, my Empress, you know, our children are our extension into the future.
Yes.
And one thing this generation will add is that they didn't know. It's not all of them going to follow what we do or what we try to input in them, but they will never have the excuse that they never know, because we're always pushing the information out there. The greatest thing in life is to know who you are, how you arrive where you are, and where you need to go.
Absolutely.
And your moja is essential amongst us as African people. We're not all going to agree on everything. But as long as we agree on some things, we can work our way through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as long as we all agree on the big picture, which is, you know, about us advancing as a people and making great strides together to do better, then yes, we will definitely get there. G says the white folks were with us in the early days, but changed in 2016 after Brexit. All the old National Front have come back. Wow. Okay. I mean, they're just wearing different outfits now, aren't they? National Fronts are wearing police uniforms, sitting under judges' tables, and they're in the probation service. They're in the local authorities, they're in the government, they're everywhere. And JKBs is saying crime pays. That's the system. And Anthony Lowe says, reminding us about Oswald, Warrior Charge. Yes.
Oswald.
Yeah.
I was playing that on my show last night. And incidentally, if people want to get me, yes. I like Sister Shanice, I have a show that I have on galaxyafiwe.net, www.galaxyafiwe.net. I'm on a Tuesday evening between GMT time 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and on Sunday morning GMT time 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And so the Tuesday show is called the Nubian Forum People's Talk Show, and the Sunday show is called the Temple of Know Thyself. Like that, Sister Shanice has a show on a Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then we have a whole host of other presenters throughout the strong. So tune into Galaxy, tell people about it, spread the word, because we're looking for young pilots as well, you know, young African engineers who want to get involved in a station. Just look us up.
Ashe. I'll put the details and the links under this video probably by tomorrow, so they will be there. So do tune in. It'll be absolutely fantastic for you to become part of our Galaxy Afiri audience if you're not already a member. To everybody in the chat that's been following us this evening, to each of you who've been participating in the conversation, we thank you so much. We are 3 minutes away from the top of the hour, so I'm going to go over to Prophet to give him the opportunity to close out with, you know, his final overview and summary of being Black and growing up in Britain. What would you like to leave us with, Prophet?
You know, being African and growing up in Britain was an experience. You know, between the 60s through to the 90s, there was a time when there was a renaissance in the 90s where we were finding ourselves again. We were creating good music again. We had women like Indie Irie and Lauryn Hill, Angie Stone, you know, to name a few, Erica Badu. Yeah, African women were proud of wearing their natural hair again. You know, we had artists starting to sing a lot of culture tunes again. And then things changed in the 2000s. But don't care how they try to steal our creativity. Don't care how they try to give an impression that we are people who have no ambition. We know different. Many of us and many of our young people have those dreams. But I'm going to tell young people one thing. When you come into this life, you're given a gift. Oftentimes, you don't adhere to that gift because what you want is your dream. But if you hone your gift will pay for your dream.
Wow.
Do what you've been given the skill to do, and it will subsidize your dream. Never give up. Always remember who you are. We're collectively African people. Like that, we're strong. Like that, we're weak. And as my friend from CTJ, Cool Grant, says, divided we will fall, but together we will rise. We have the ability to achieve anything that we want at any moment, in any time, in any sphere. Itepe, Ineke, J.R. Senebe, Maha'otep.
Ma'at Wow, family. I think that's a beautiful closing. So we're going to close out on those words there by Prophet. I want to thank each and every one of you for staying with us throughout the evening. If you haven't already done so, please give us a like, a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. And remember to subscribe to my other channel as well, African World Affairs. It would be great to see you there. They've taken down, another one of my videos on this channel. It's just a matter of time. So anytime you can't find me here, family, just look for me on my other channel where I will continue with wonderful guests.
Hopefully they won't take this one down.
Well, I don't never tried though. But you know, this particular one. Well, let's hope not. That's why I record them now.
and my sister Shanice, we give thanks unto the ancestors for the works that you're doing. And may you be protected, and may you continue to do the work of spreading the news about our people and helping with all the different people that you have in the station in Africating the African world. Maha'otep to you, my sister.
Thank you so much, beloved. So, family, if you want to hear more from Nana, oh my gosh, his shows on a Sunday, explosive. His shows on a Tuesday, very popular. Tune in, okay, and participate. You can even come on the show and speak live and direct. So
Definitely.
I want to thank you so much, Prophet Nana Meduty, because I know how busy you are. So thank you for taking time out to be with us this evening. Stay strong, stay powerful. Peace and love.
Stay Africa.
One love, family. Sister Shanice, out of here for now. Bye for now.